Hi YouTube. It's a dull, almost rainy Saturday, rather surprisingly, here in London after we've had a glorious week. So I'm indoors when I expected to be outdoors, and I thought I would do a quick video celebrating not my favourites of this month, but my non-favourites, items that I've decided whilst I was having a clear out I'm going to get rid of from my makeup drawers. And although, obviously I'm doing it now in June, some of them are products that I've had for a while, but I've just decided to let go of. And they're all products that at one time or another I've read rave reviews about on blogs or in the press, and that's probably why I bought most of them. And they haven't really lived up to the raves for me. So I guess I should start with the most controversial of them, because it's the famous Urban Decay Naked 2, which I'm getting rid of. And this seems to be a most universally loved palette. And I do understand why, because it is a good value palette for a neutrals. There are 3 palettes, as you know. I dithered long and hard between 1 and 2 before I bought 2. And to be honest, the decisive factor was probably the fact that this was a hard tin palette, which I thought was much more practical than the kind of flock cloth one that one came in. And you'll all be really familiar with the layout of this and the colours. There's even quite a few shimmery colours, which I often like. But somehow, this just doesn't do it for me. It's quite boring, I think. The quality of the shadows is pretty good for the price. I mean, decent colour payoff of most of them, some better than others. There's a fair bit of fallout in some of the glitters. These are the cool shades, which generally I quite like, although, if I'm honest, given you're getting a number of shades here, I would have preferred a mix of cool and warm in order to make this a really workable palette for me. So it's not a terrible palette, I'm not saying that, and I have tried it for quite a while and used a number of the shadows quite a bit and got good value out of it, but I just don't find myself reaching for it on a regular basis. I do have my own kind of neutrals palette made up of MAC shades that I much prefer for similar colours and finishes. The actual kind of layout of the palette, although it is quite practical for travelling, it's quite heavy, and I would actually much prefer to take a couple of Dior or Chanel or Tom Ford quads or my MAC 10 palette rather than this one. So that's why I'm letting it go. As I say, it's not a terrible palette, but it's not really a very exciting palette, and I do understand why it's a value palette for people to get good quality shadows, but I'm still kind of surprised it gets so much love. Apart from the money angle, I'd much rather have 4 really good shadows from Chanel or Tom Ford than this, fairly indifferent, okay selection. So there we go. Perhaps I've got more money than sense. I found my recent purchases from Yves Saint Laurent far more disappointing, because I really don't think the quality lives up to the hype. What really attracted me to these palettes, this one's an eye palette, the City one. This one was supposed to be a blush. Really gorgeous packaging, and I'm a magpie for beautiful packaging. But the products, I think, really poor quality inside. This was one of the City Lights eyeshadow palettes. Got a lot of love on YouTube in particular from, quite reputable bloggists. But I really don't rate the colour payoff fallout. I mean, look at that, really pathetic colour payoff for that deep colour there. This one's supposed to be wet and dry, but I don't find either. The wet use is slightly better than the dry. Really disappointed with that. I think it was about £38, so not cheap. This was even worse. This is the Flower Crush palette, Rosy Blush. I did an individual video on this because I was so disappointed with it. I should have tried it out in shop. Really, really pretty presentation. Still got the gold overlay. But absolutely appalling colour payoff. I mean, it just doesn't show on the cheeks as a blush. And not even as a terribly good highlighter, particularly when this is just a gold overlay, which is giving some shimmer. That's going to run out soon. So getting rid of that. Really disappointed with Yves Saint Laurent makeup. I didn't like their Touche Eclat foundation either. I didn't buy that. I got a sample and I found it oxidised appallingly on me. I'm just surprised they get such love on the internet at the moment. I don't think they're up there with the other quality makeup brands, certainly in the things I've purchased. Charlotte Tilbury. Want to love the collections there because I love the idea of, being able to buy a complete look. I know she is very involved with the development of the Tom Ford eye quads, which I think are superb. I didn't buy a quad. I did buy a couple of the Colour Chameleon pencils, and I just haven't used them. They are a bit more chubby than obviously the individual eyeliners, so they're difficult to use as a pure eyeliner. There is excellent colour payoff and they are soft, but they kind of fall between two stools for me. If I'm going to use a kind of chubby stick eyeshadow pencil, then I kind of prefer it to be thicker than this, kind of in the format of the Chanel stilos. I forget what they're called, but not the liners, the complete eye coverage, which they did last summer, or for them to be thinner. These are the devil's own pencils to sharpen because they're too thick for most sharpeners. You have to buy a specific sharpener for it. And this one, which was the black one, supposedly for my eye colouring, pretty colour with a bit of shimmer in it, but I found had quite a lot of fallout. So disappointed with those, I have to say. What else? This is a more budget rave I've read about, the Vitamin C Skin Reviver by Body Shop, which was said to smell citrusy, which is always a turn-on for me. I didn't read enough about it. It is really a primer, which should have turned me on to the fact that it is very silicone heavy, and that's what I don't like about it. So it's very slippery, it's very pore cloggy on me. It does work as a primer. It slightly extends the longevity of your foundation, but it clogs my pores. I do occasionally use silicone-based primers. I found Smashbox the best of them, but I'm not fond of them, and I don't rate this product, although it's not that cheap. If you buy it full price, I bought it in a sale, so it wasn't too bad, and I'm getting rid of that. Bobbi Brown foundation stick. First foundation stick I bought. I've used it a few times. It's quite good, more as a concealer than a foundation stick, because I find it a bit too drying to use as a foundation. It doesn't really blend terribly smoothly. Much, much prefer the Tom Ford foundation sticks, which are the only foundation sticks really that's worked for me. They're much more emollient consistency, but they are far more expensive than the Bobbi Brown. I think about double the price, but this doesn't work for me other than as a concealer, and it's a very expensive concealer, so getting rid. And the other thing that I was disappointed in was this Dior Snow foundation, which I bought SPF 30, which was attractive to me, and a good range of light shades. It was quite hard to get hold of in this country. I think it's released more widely for the Asian market. But I got mine in Selfridges, and I have persevered with using it. But although it's supposed to be a kind of medium coverage, I find I have to use quite a lot to build up to medium coverage. And then it just emphasises my pores, which aren't in brilliant condition. So much so, I have persevered with it, applying with different primers and different brushes. And I thought it was okay-ish, and I wanted to use it up. And I caught sight of myself in a slightly magnified mirror in a store the other week when I was trying out some Guerlain bronzers, and my skin just looked terrible. The very kind makeup assistant said, "Oh, what are you wearing?" I can't be a Guerlain foundation. I said, "No, it's Dior," and she kind of smiled. And I thought, oh no, I've got to get rid. So this was quite an expensive foundation, just terrible for magnifying the pores. There we go. Those are my disappointing, expensive, apart from this one, and I suppose the Urban Decay purchases that were expensive mistakes but are going on eBay or out to friends. So hope you enjoyed. See you soon. Bye for now.